The text message from Santiago arrived just as I pulled into my parents' driveway. "Lisa, call me before you go inside. It's important." My stomach clenched. In my family, important usually meant trouble, and trouble usually meant Jasmine needed something. I'm Lisa, the reliable daughter, the one who keeps the lights on and the mortgage paid, while my younger sister collects accolades for existing. At 35, I should be used to it by now, but some wounds never quite heal. I glanced at my phone again, thumb hovering over Santiago's number, but Mum was already waving from the front door. Her pearls caught the evening light, the ones she wore when she wanted something. "Lisa, darling, you're late!" She air-kissed my cheek, careful not to smudge her lipstick. "Everyone's waiting." The house smelled like pot roast and ulterior motives. Dad sat in his usual spot, pretending to read the newspaper. Jasmine was already at the table, wearing that innocent expression she'd perfected since childhood. Her 5-year-old son, Bryson, played quietly in the corner with his iPad. "Sorry I'm late," I said, hanging my coat. "Work ran over." "Always working," Mum clicked her tongue. "You know, if you followed Jasmine's example and married young." I bit back a response. They conveniently forgot how Jasmine's first marriage had ended, or how I'd helped pay for both her weddings. Her current husband, Dylan, wasn't here tonight. Another red flag. "Where's Dylan?" I asked, settling into my chair. Jasmine's smile flickered. "Oh, he had a work thing. On Sunday." "Wine, Lisa?" Dad interrupted, already pouring. His hands shook slightly. The dining room felt charged with unspoken words. Mum had brought out the good china, the set she'd promised to Jasmine years ago. Another reminder of the natural order in our family. "How are things at the fertility clinic?" Mum asked, spooning vegetables onto plates with surgical precision. "Still keeping those." She paused delicately. "Eggs frozen?" "Embryos," I corrected. "And yes." The reminder stung. After James left me at the altar 3 years ago, those embryos became my insurance policy, my hope for a future family. They'd cost most of my savings, but they were mine. "Such a shame," Mum sighed. "All that money, just sitting in a freezer." Jasmine shifted in her seat, shooting Mum a look I couldn't quite read. My phone buzzed again. Santiago. I should have taken that call. "Actually," Jasmine began, her voice honey-sweet, "that's kind of why we wanted to have dinner tonight." The pot roast turned to ash in my mouth. Of course, it was never just dinner. "We've been talking," Mum said, placing her fork down with theatrical precision. "About family, about the future." Dad suddenly became very interested in his wine glass. Classic move. He always let Mom handle the dirty work. "And about the house," Jasmine added softly. "The house. My grandfather's house. The one I'd been paying to maintain since his death, while my parents and Jasmine lived in it rent-free. The one whose property taxes I covered every year, along with the utilities, repairs, and that new roof nobody thanked me for." "What about the house?" I asked, though I already knew where this was heading. Years of family dynamics had taught me to read the signs. Mum's pearls, the good china, Jasmine's practiced innocence, Dad's strategic silence. Mum reached across the table, her manicured fingers stopping just short of touching my hand. "There's something important we need to ask of you tonight." And there it was. The trap was set, the players in position. I thought about Santiago's messages, about the manila envelope in my bag containing truths nobody in this room was ready for. For a moment, I considered walking out, sparing us all what was about to happen. But I'd spent too many years walking away, swallowing my words, playing the role of dutiful daughter, while Jasmine took and took and took. Tonight would be different. Tonight I had proof. "Before you ask," I said, reaching for my bag, "there's something you all need to know." Mum's smile froze. Jasmine's fingers tightened around her wine glass. In the corner, Bryson looked up from his iPad, his features so unlike his supposed father's that I wondered how nobody else had noticed. The truth was about to hit the fan, and for once I wasn't going to clean up the mess. "Actually, sweetheart," Mum cut in before I could continue, "let us speak first. This is important." She exchanged glances with Jasmine, who dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. The waterworks were starting right on cue. "Lisa!" Jasmine's voice quivered. "You know how hard it's been for me to have another baby." I took a slow sip of wine. After Bryson, Jasmine had declared herself desperate for a second child, conveniently forgetting to mention her first had been a miracle. Dylan and I have tried everything, she continued. The doctors say... She trailed off, letting Mum pick up the script. Your sister needs help, Lisa. Family help. Mum's voice carried that familiar tone of moral authority. We've discussed this extensively, and we believe the right thing, the only thing, is for you to donate your embryos to Jasmine. The room went silent. Even Bryson looked up from his iPad. Donate my embryos, I repeated flatly. You're not using them, Dad finally spoke, still not meeting my eyes. They're just sitting there. Those embryos cost me $30,000, I said, and they're mine. We'll pay you back, Jasmine rushed to say, once Dylan's business takes off. Like you paid back the money for your first wedding or your second. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Lisa! Mum's shock was theatrical. Your sister is suffering. After everything this family has done for you. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Everything this family has done for me. Please, elaborate. We raised you, Dad said stiffly. Gave you opportunities. You mean like when you spent my college fund on Jasmine's first wedding? Or when you convinced Grandpa to sell his beach house to pay for her failed business venture? Jasmine's tears dried up instantly. That's not fair. I was going through a difficult time. When aren't you? I muttered. There's something else, Mum pressed on, clearly trying to regain control of the conversation. About the house. Of course, it was never just one thing with them. We think it's time to make some changes, she continued. Your sister needs stability, especially with a new baby on the horizon. We believe you should sign over your portion of the maintenance responsibilities to her. My portion? I echoed. You mean the mortgage I pay? The property taxes? The utilities? Well, yes, Dad nodded. Jasmine could take over all that, eventually. Eventually, I repeated. My hand moved to my bag again, where Santiago's documents waited. It's the right thing to do, Jasmine insisted. I'm the one with a child. I'm the one building a family. You're... She hesitated, then plunged ahead. You're not even dating anyone. Because you're so focused on work, Mom added quickly. Which is admirable, dear, but family comes first. And Jasmine needs... Stop! My voice cut through the room like a blade. Just stop! Do you have any idea how much money I've poured into this house, into this family? Now, Lisa, Dad warned, let's not make this about money. Why not? You are. I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. Would you like to see the exact figures? Everything I've paid while you all lived here rent-free? While Jasmine redecorated twice on my dime? That's different, Jasmine protested. I needed... You always need something, I said. And somehow I'm always the one who has to provide it. But not anymore. I reached into my bag, fingers brushing against the manila envelope. One document would shatter their world. The other would reshape it entirely. Before we continue this discussion, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, there are some things you need to know about the house, and about Bryson. Jasmine's face went white. What about Bryson? Santiago sent me some interesting paperwork, I said, watching my sister's composure crack. About the house's real ownership, and about your son's birth certificate. What does Santiago have to do with any of this? Mum demanded, but her voice trembled slightly. Everything, I replied, pulling out the envelope. He's been helping me gather evidence for months. Would you like to see what's inside? The silence in the room was deafening. Jasmine's hands shook as she reached for her wine glass. Mum's perfectly arranged smile had vanished. Dad looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. You're bluffing, Jasmine whispered. But her eyes told a different story. I opened the envelope slowly, deliberately. Am I? My phone buzzed. A text from Christine, my cousin. Mum just told me what they're planning. Don't give in. Those embryos are yours. Who's texting you? Mum demanded, trying to peer across the table. Just work, I lied, sliding the phone away. Now about these documents. This is ridiculous, Jasmine interrupted, standing up so abruptly her chair scraped against the floor. You're trying to deflect because you know we're right. You've never had any maternal instincts anyway. The words hit like a slap. I thought about the nursery designs still saved on my Pinterest board, the baby names list in my journal, the tiny onesie I couldn't bring myself to return after James left. No maternal instincts? I kept my voice level. Tell them why I really froze those embryos, Jasmine. Tell them about the night you found me crying in the bathroom 3 years ago. Her face paled. I don't know what you're talking about. The night before James left me at the altar, the night you promised to keep my secret. I turned to my parents. Would you like to know why my fiancé really called off our wedding? Lisa, stop this, Mum warned. I was pregnant, I said. The words hung in the air like smoke. 8 weeks along! James and I were so excited we'd already started planning the nursery, but there were complications. Dad's newspaper crumpled in his hands. Mum's mouth opened and closed without sound. I lost the baby 2 days before the wedding, I continued. James couldn't handle it. He left. And Jasmine? I looked at my sister. Jasmine was the only one who knew, the only one I trusted. I didn't think it was my place to tell, Jasmine stammered. No? But it was your place to tell James I'd been drinking that week? To suggest maybe that's why I miscarried? Mom gasped. Jasmine, you didn't! She did. I pulled out my phone again, opening an old text thread. James told me everything before he left. How my own sister planted doubts in his mind. How she suggested I wasn't ready for motherhood. I was trying to protect you, Jasmine protested, but her voice wavered. Protect me? Or protect your position as the only mother in the family? I turned to my parents. Did you know she visited the fertility clinic 2 weeks after James left? Asked about my embryos then. Bryson, honey, Jasmine called out suddenly. Go upstairs and play. The little boy scampered away, leaving his iPad behind. On the screen, a paused video showed him playing baseball, his natural athletic ability so similar to his real father's. Those embryos are my future, I said. My chance at the family I almost had. And you want me to just hand them over? After everything? We're your family, Mum insisted, but her voice had lost its authority. Family doesn't manipulate each other. Family doesn't lie. I pulled the first document from the envelope. Family doesn't hide paternity test results. Jasmine lunged across the table, but I held the paper out of reach. Lisa, please! What paternity test? Dad's voice cracked. Maybe we should ask Chad, I suggested, watching Jasmine's face crumble. Your first husband might be interested to know why his miracle baby looks nothing like him. You're lying, Mom whispered, but her eyes darted to Bryson's abandoned iPad, to the familiar features that had never quite matched Chad's. Santiago has copies of everything, I said. The DNA test, the real birth certificate, the messages between Jasmine and... Stop! Jasmine screamed. Just stop! You want to destroy everything? Fine. But what about Bryson? What about Dylan? Have you thought about what this will do to them? Have you? I countered. All these years, letting Chad believe he had a son? Letting Dylan raise another man's child without knowing? My phone buzzed again. Another text from Christine. Stay strong. You're doing the right thing. We can talk about this, Mom pleaded. As a family, we can figure something out. Oh, we're going to figure something out, I agreed, reaching for the second document. Starting with the truth about who really owns this house. Dad's face went ashen. What are you talking about? Grandpa left some interesting paperwork with Santiago before he died. I smoothed out the deed on the table. Would you like to see it? The room fell silent except for the sound of Jasmine's quiet sobs and Mom's shaky breathing. The truth was unfolding like a map, showing them all the territory they'd lost, and I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The front door opened, and Dylan's voice called out from the hallway. Hello? Sorry I'm late. The work thing finished early. He stopped in the doorway, taking in the scene. Jasmine's tear-streaked face, Mum's rigid posture, Dad's ashen complexion, and the document spread across the dinner table. What's going on? He asked, his smile fading. Is everything okay? Dylan! Jasmine jumped up, rushing to him. You shouldn't be here. We were just having a family discussion. About Bryson, I cut in. And about some interesting papers you found in Jasmine's desk last month. Dylan's face changed. He stepped away from Jasmine's reaching hands. How do you know about that? What papers? Mum demanded. Tell them, Dylan, I said softly. Tell them what you found while looking for the insurance documents. Jasmine made a small, choking sound. Dylan, please. I found a paternity test, he said slowly, looking between us. It was dated before Bryson was born. I asked Jasmine about it, but she said it was just routine testing during pregnancy, standard procedure. And you believed that? Dad asked, his voice hollow. She's my wife, Dylan replied, but uncertainty crept into his tone. Of course I believed her. Why wouldn't I? I pulled out my phone, opening a photo. Because this is what a standard pregnancy paternity test looks like. What you found was something very different, wasn't it? Dylan moved closer, squinting at the screen. The one I found had different markings, different names. Different father, I added quietly. The room erupted. Mum knocked over her wine glass, red liquid seeping into the white tablecloth. Dad stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. Jasmine lunged for my phone, but Dylan caught her arm. Is it true? He demanded. Is Bryson not Chad's son? I can explain, Jasmine sobbed. It's not what you think. Then what is it? Dylan's voice rose. Because I'm thinking you've been lying to everyone, to Chad, to me, to your own son. Keep your voice down, Mom hissed. Bryson will hear. Bryson should have heard the truth years ago, I said. Instead of living a lie because it was more convenient for Jasmine. You have no right, Mom started, but Dylan cut her off. She has every right. We all do. He turned to Jasmine. Who is Bryson's father? Jasmine's makeup was streaked with tears. It doesn't matter. You're his father now. It matters to Chad, I interrupted. It matters to the man who spent 5 years thinking he couldn't have children, who blamed himself for your fertility struggles. Chad! Dylan's face darkened. You let your ex-husband believe... I did it for Bryson! Jasmine screamed. To give him a stable home, a real family. By lying to everyone? Dylan's voice cracked. By letting me adopt him without telling me the truth? The sound of small feet on the stairs made everyone freeze. Bryson appeared in the doorway, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. Daddy! Why is everyone yelling? Dylan's face crumpled. He looked at the little boy, the child he'd raised as his own for the past 3 years, and something broke in his expression. It's okay, buddy, he managed. Everything's okay. Why don't you go back upstairs? I'll come read you a story in a minute. Once Bryson's footsteps faded, Dylan turned back to Jasmine. I need to know. Who is his real father? Jasmine's silence was deafening. Tell him, I said, or I will. Santiago has the DNA results right here. You've been working with Santiago this whole time, Mom accused. Plotting against your own sister? No, I replied. I've been working to uncover the truth about Bryson, about the house, about everything. The house? Dylan frowned. What about the house? I reached for the second document, but Jasmine's hand shot out. Wait, please, just wait. Let me tell him. Let me explain everything. Like you explained the paternity test. Dylan's laugh was bitter. I think I've heard enough of your explanations. He turned and walked toward the stairs, presumably to get Bryson. The sound of his footsteps echoed through the silent dining room. Well, Dad said finally, I hope you're happy, Lisa. You've ruined everything. I pulled out the house deed, laying it carefully on the table. No, Dad, I haven't ruined anything. I've just exposed what was already broken. What's that? Mom asked, eyeing the document warily. Dessert's getting cold, I said, mimicking her practiced smile. Why don't we discuss the house's real ownership over coffee? Upstairs, we could hear Dylan's muffled voice reading a bedtime story to Bryson. The sound made Jasmine flinch as she mechanically served coffee and Mum's signature apple pie, a dessert that usually came with strings attached. Before we get to the house, I said, sliding the DNA results across the table, let's finish one conversation before starting another. Mum's hand shook as she picked up the paper. Her eyes widened, darting between the document and Jasmine. Thomas Reynolds? Your tennis instructor from the country club? Jasmine collapsed into her chair, mascara running down her cheeks. It was just once. Chad and I were having problems. Problems? Dad exploded, finding his voice. You told everyone he was infertile. You let him believe. I was scared, Jasmine wailed. Chad was always working. We were fighting all the time. And Thomas was just there. And kind, I added quietly. And athletic, just like Bryson. You knew? Mum turned on me. All this time? I suspected. Bryson's natural talent for sports, his features, they never matched Chad's. But I didn't know for sure until Santiago helped me get the DNA test results. Santiago had no right, Dad began. He had every right, I cut in. As Grandpa's lawyer and executor of his will, he had a duty to expose the truth. About everything. The house deed sat between us like a loaded gun. Dylan's going to leave me, Jasmine whispered. He'll take Bryson. No, I corrected. He can't take Bryson. He's not the legal father. Chad is, at least on paper. And when he finds out... You wouldn't, Jasmine gasped. You can't tell Chad. Actually, I pulled out my phone. Chad's already asking questions. Remember last month when Bryson needed that medical history for school? Chad's doctor flagged some inconsistencies. The sound of footsteps on the stairs silenced us. Dylan appeared, his face tight with controlled anger. Bryson's asleep, he announced. I'll be back tomorrow to pack some of our things. He can stay at my brother's until we figure this out. Dylan, please! Jasmine stood, reaching for him. We can work through this. Work through what? He snapped. The fact that you let me adopt a child without telling me the truth? That you've been lying to everyone for years? It's not that simple. Mom tried to intervene. Jasmine was just trying to protect. Don't! Dylan's voice was ice. Don't defend her. Not now. He turned to me. What's this about the house? I smoothed out the deed. Grandpa knew things weren't right in this family. He saw how Mom and Dad enabled Jasmine, how they used my money to fix her mistakes. So before he died, he made some changes to his will. Changes? Dad's face went pale. The house was never put in your names, I explained. Grandpa left it solely to me, with specific instructions about its use and maintenance. That's impossible, Mom protested. We've lived here for years. As tenants, I corrected. Tenants who haven't paid rent in 5 years. Santiago has the records of every payment I've made, every bill I've covered, every repair I've funded. The silence was absolute. Even Jasmine stopped crying. You're lying, Dad whispered, but his eyes told me he knew I wasn't. The house is mine, I said firmly. It always has been. And now it's time for things to change. You can't just throw us out, Mom's voice rose hysterically. We're your parents. Parents who spent my college fund on Jasmine's first wedding. Parents who manipulated me into paying their debts. Parents who tried to pressure me into giving away my embryos. Dylan made a disgusted sound. They what? Oh yes, I turned to him. That was tonight's original agenda. They wanted me to give my embryos to Jasmine. For her next miracle baby. He looked at Jasmine with something close to horror. Were you ever going to tell me the truth about anything? Jasmine's silence was answer enough. I'll have my lawyer contact you about Bryson, he said flatly, then walked out. The front door closed with a decisive click. Well, I stood up, gathering the documents. I think that's enough truth for one night. Santiago will be in touch about the new living arrangements. Lisa, please. Mom reached for my hand. We can fix this. No, Mom, we can't. I pulled away. Some things, once broken, stay broken. You taught me that. I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. Oh, and Jasmine? Chad's lawyer will be calling you tomorrow. I hear he's very interested in discussing Bryson's paternity. The last thing I heard as I closed the door was Jasmine's sob and the sound of Mom's precious china shattering against the wall. The next morning, I met Santiago at his office. He looked exactly as he had when I was a child, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and perpetually armed with a cup of black coffee. Your mother called me 6 times last night, he said, sliding a folder across his desk. Your father tried to access your grandfather's original will this morning. Let me guess. They're claiming I forged the deed. Among other things, he sipped his coffee, they're also threatening to contest the will. Your sister's been calling local real estate attorneys. My phone buzzed. Another text from Christine. Mum says Aunt Margaret is having a meltdown. What happened? Have they moved out yet? Santiago asked. No, but Dylan came this morning with a police escort to get some of Bryson's things. I rubbed my temples. Jasmine tried to stop him, but the officers explained she couldn't legally prevent him from taking his adopted son's belongings. And Chad. His lawyer contacted Jasmine an hour ago. They're demanding a new paternity test and full disclosure of Bryson's medical history. Santiago nodded, pulling out more papers. I've prepared formal eviction notices. They'll have 30 days to vacate the property. The office door burst open. Mum stormed in. Dad trailing behind her like a worried shadow. "How dare you!" she shrieked, waving her phone. "An eviction notice. By text." "Email, actually," Santiago corrected calmly. "The official papers will be delivered this afternoon." "This is ridiculous." Dad stepped forward. "That house has been in our family for generations." "Exactly," I cut in. "And Grandpa wanted it to stay in the family, with someone who would respect it, not exploit it." "We never exploited," Mum began. "Really?" I pulled out my own stack of papers. "Should we go through the list? The second mortgage you took out to pay for Jasmine's failed boutique? The equity line of credit for her first divorce? The property taxes I've been paying while you remodeled the kitchen twice?" "We're your parents!" Mum's voice cracked. "Everything we did was for this family." "No," I stood up. "Everything you did was for Jasmine. And I was your ATM." "That's not fair," Dad started. "Fair?" I laughed. "Was it fair when you convinced Grandpa to sell his beach house to cover Jasmine's debts? Was it fair when you spent my inheritance on her shopping sprees?" "We always meant to pay you back," Mum insisted. "Like Jasmine meant to pay back the $40,000 she borrowed last year." I turned to Santiago. "Show them the accounting." He handed them a thick document. "This details every payment Lisa has made over the past 5 years. Mortgage, taxes, utilities, repairs. The total comes to just over $300,000. Mum sank into a chair. Dad's face went red. "You've been keeping track? Like we're some kind of tenants?" "That's exactly what you are," Santiago said firmly. "And you haven't paid rent in 5 years." "We're family," Mom wailed. "Family doesn't take advantage of family," I replied. "Family doesn't manipulate and lie and steal. Like you're doing now." Dad's voice rose. "Throwing us out? Taking everything away from your sister when she needs us most?" "Jasmine needs consequences," I said. "And so do you." My phone buzzed again. A text from Dylan. "Chad's filing for custody. Jasmine's threatening to leave the state with Bryson." I showed the message to Santiago, who immediately reached for his phone. "I'll contact the family court. She won't get far." "You're destroying this family," Mom sobbed. "No," I said quietly. "You did that years ago. I'm just finally standing up to you." "What do you want?" Dad asked, defeated. "Money? The house? What will it take to fix this?" "It's not about wants anymore," I replied. "It's about needs. I need you to move out. I need you to stop enabling Jasmine. I need you to face what you've done." "If we refuse?" Mum's chin lifted defiantly. Santiago handed them another document. "Then we'll discuss the legal implications of fraud, tax evasion, and misappropriation of funds." They stared at the paper, then at each other. Decades of manipulation and entitlement crumbled in the face of cold, hard facts. "You have 30 days, I said, standing up. "I suggest you start packing." As they left, shoulders slumped in defeat, I turned to Santiago. "Did Grandpa know about all of this?" He smiled sadly. "He knew enough to protect you. The question is, are you ready for what comes next?" My phone buzzed one more time. Christine again. "Just heard what happened. You're my hero." I took a deep breath. "I'm ready for whatever comes next, because for the first time in my life, I'm not carrying everyone else's burdens." The weight of years lifted from my shoulders, replaced by something lighter. Freedom. The moving truck arrived exactly 28 days later. I watched from my car as Mum and Dad loaded boxes into a rented SUV, headed for the small condo they'd found across town. They hadn't spoken to me since Santiago's office. My phone rang. Dylan. "Jasmine's threatening to run again," he said without preamble. "She showed up at Bryson's school yesterday." "Did she take him?" "No, the school had our custody order. But she caused a scene." He sighed heavily. "Chad's lawyer is pushing for supervised visits only." "How's Bryson handling everything?" "He's confused, angry, keeps asking why everyone's lying." Dylan's voice cracked. "The therapist says he needs stability right now, and truth." Movement caught my eye, Jasmine's car pulling into the driveway. She got out, mascara smeared, clutching a manila envelope. "Dylan, I have to go. Jasmine's here." "Be careful," he warned before hanging up. I got out of my car just as Jasmine reached me. "You can't do this." She thrust the envelope at me. "The bank denied my loan application. They said I have too much debt. That's not my problem anymore." "Where am I supposed to go?" Her voice rose hysterically. "Mom and Dad can barely afford their new place." Dylan's frozen our accounts and Chad's lawyers. Maybe you should have thought about that before lying to everyone for years. I did it for Bryson. You did it for yourself, I corrected. Like always. Please. She grabbed my arm. I'll tell everyone I was wrong. I'll say you deserve the house. Just help me one last time. The front door opened. Mum appeared, carrying her prized crystal vase. Jasmine? What are you doing here? Begging, I said flatly. Again. Lisa, please. Mum stepped forward. Your sister needs help. Like she needed my college fund, my inheritance, my embryos. That was different. No, it wasn't. I pulled free from Jasmine's grip. It was never different. It was always her taking and me giving, but not anymore. I'm your sister, Jasmine screamed. And I'm your daughter, I turned to Mum. But that never mattered, did it? Dad appeared in the doorway. What's going on? Your daughter needs money, I said. Again, maybe you can sell something else of mine to help her. That's not fair, he protested weakly. None of this was fair. I surprised myself by shouting. It wasn't fair when you chose her over me every single time. It wasn't fair when you let her steal my future, my savings, my chance at having a family. I never stole, Jasmine began. You tried to take my embryos. My voice echoed across the driveway. You lied about your son's father. You betrayed every person who ever loved you. A car door slammed. Christine walked up, taking in the scene. I heard shouting. Everything okay? Everything's fine, I said, straightening my shoulders. They were just leaving. Lisa, Mum pleaded, we can work this out, as a family. We're not a family anymore, I replied. We're just people who shared DNA and a lot of bad memories. What about Bryson? Jasmine tried one last time. He needs his family. He needs the truth, Christine spoke up, and therapy, and parents who don't use him as a bargaining chip. My phone buzzed. A text from Chad. Court date set for custody hearing. Thank you for telling me the truth. The movers will be here tomorrow, I told my parents. Make sure everything's out by then. Where's your compassion? Mum demanded. Your sense of family duty? I spent it all, I replied, along with my money, my trust, and my patience. Jasmine crumpled the envelope in her hands. You'll regret this. When you're all alone with your frozen embryos in your empty house. I'd rather be alone than surrounded by lies, I cut her off. Now get out. All of you. They left one by one, Jasmine in tears, Mum clutching her vase, Dad without looking back. Christine stayed, her hand on my shoulder. You okay? I watched their cars disappear down the street. No, but I will be. My phone buzzed again. Santiago. Papers are filed. House is officially cleared of all claims. It's done. What now? Christine asked. I looked at the house, my house, free of their presence, their demands, their endless taking. Now, I managed a small smile. Now I start over, without them. They'll try again, she warned. They'll need something else, come up with new demands, and I'll say no, every time. The setting sun cast long shadows across the lawn, but for the first time in years I felt light, free. The cost had been high, my family, my illusions, my last shreds of guilt. But as I stood there with Christine, I knew it had been worth it. Sometimes the price of freedom is everything you thought you couldn't live without. The doorbell rang as I finished unpacking the last box in my newly renovated home office. Christine stood outside with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. Thought you might need this, she said, stepping inside. I just drove past your parents' condo. And? They've got a for rent sign up. Apparently they can't afford it. I poured the wine, letting that information settle. Have you heard from Jasmine? She's staying at some extended stay motel, working as a receptionist. Christine took a sip. Dylan filed for divorce yesterday. My phone lit up with a text from Chad. Custody hearing went well. Judge granted me primary custody. Thank you for everything. How's Bryson? I asked. Better now that he's with Chad. The therapist says he's processing things as well as can be expected. Christine paused. Your mom's been calling me, you know. Trying to get me to talk to you about reconciliation. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Santiago, carrying a familiar-looking folder. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but you need to see this. Your sister's trying one last play. He laid out documents on my new desk. Printouts of emails, legal threats, even a draft lawsuit claiming emotional distress and family abandonment. She's desperate, he explained. The DNA results went public in the custody hearing. Her reputation in town is ruined. She's threatening to go to the media about you destroying the family. I laughed, surprising myself. Let her. I've got nothing left to hide. There's something else, Christine said quietly. Mum's been telling people you stole their retirement fund, that you manipulated Grandpa into changing his will. Of course she has. I opened my laptop, pulling up my blog. That's why I posted this last night. They leaned in to read the title. The Cost of Being the Family ATM. My Story of Financial Abuse and Recovery. You went public, Santiago asked. With everything. Bank statements, legal documents, text messages, the whole truth. My phone buzzed. A message from Dylan. Just read your blog. Thank you for helping me see the truth about Jasmine. It's already got 10,000 shares, I said. Turns out I'm not the only person who's been financially and emotionally abused by family. Christine squeezed my hand. Are you ready for the backlash? I'm ready for anything, I replied. Besides, I've got something they don't. What's that? A future. I pulled out a calendar marked with doctor's appointments. I'm starting the embryo transfer process next month, on my terms, with my own support system. Santiago smiled. Your grandfather would be proud. The doorbell rang a third time. Through the window, I saw Mum standing there clutching her purse. Don't answer it, Christine warned. But I was already moving. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. I read your blog, Mum said, her voice thin. How could you expose our private business like that? Private business? You mean your systematic exploitation of my finances? Your enabling of Jasmine's lies? We're your family. No, I cut her off. You're people who took advantage of my love and guilt for years. There's a difference. Your father's health is failing, she tried. The stress of all this. Stop! My voice was firm. No more manipulation. No more guilt trips. It's over. She stepped back, finally seeing me, really seeing me, for the first time. You've changed, she whispered. I've grown up, I corrected, and grown stronger. My phone chimed with another blog comment notification. Thank you for giving me the courage to stand up to my own toxic family. When you're ready to take responsibility for what you've done, I told Mom, when you're ready to acknowledge the truth without manipulation or guilt tripping, maybe we can talk. Until then, goodbye. I closed the door on her protest, turning back to Christine and Santiago. You okay? Christine asked. I looked around my house, my space, my future, my truth. The weight of family obligation had been replaced by something lighter. Possibility. I'm better than okay, I said. I'm free. Santiago raised his wine glass. To freedom? To truth, Christine added. To starting over, I finished, clinking my glass against theirs. Outside, Mum's car started and drove away. But this time, her departure didn't feel like loss. It felt like victory. My phone lit up one last time. Another comment on my blog. Your story helped me find my voice. Thank you for showing me that sometimes the strongest families are the ones we choose for ourselves. I smiled, knowing that while blood might be thicker than water, the truth was thicker than both. And finally, wonderfully, the truth was all I needed.